Go ahead.
The early church fathers who quote these Gospels don't say anything about them being Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. What's happening in the early church in the 2nd century is that there are a lot of Gospels floating around. There's a Gospel allegedly written by Peter, one allegedly written by Thomas, one allegedly written by Philip, one allegedly written by Judas Iscariot, or about Judas Iscariot, one dealing with Mary Magdalene. They're all called these things: the Gospel of Judas, the Gospel of Mary, the Gospel of Peter. And Christians in the proto-Orthodox churches, the churches that are supporting the views that later became the dominant views within Christianity, are using a range of Gospels themselves, but they're anonymous. And so by the time of Irenaeus, he's a heresy hunter. He's trying to weed out the false Gospels. And his Gospels are these Gospels that are being widely used, but they don't have names to them. And so they've got to associate them with names of apostles. And so they pick two people, Matthew and John, as two of the apostles, and then they want Gospels representing the two chief apostles of Rome, Peter and Paul. But everybody knows that Peter and Paul didn't write Gospels, and so they associate Peter with, they say Peter's version was written by Mark, his companion. Paul's version was written by Luke, Paul's companion. And so what they're doing is they're naming these Gospels in order to provide them with apostolic credentials. This doesn't happen until all these other Gospels are floating around, and the early Christians have to say, look, these Gospels we're using are apostolic, and the Gospels you're using are forgeries.